Chapter 1 Aranyakand Mool प्रभाते मनी राम चिंतित जावा पुढे वैकरी राम आधी वदावा सदाचार हा थोर सांडून येतो जनी तोचितो मानवी धन्य होतो. Let us remember Lord Ram every morning. Let us start all our work by chanting Shri Ram. Let us always stick to the good behavior, never forgetting that it forms the crux of a moral high ground. Only the person of good action and virtues is held in the highest esteem in this world.
Okay, thank you, Apurva, for that wonderful beginning. So, hello everyone, welcome to the channel and yet another episode of our Roots in Oblivion podcast. So,
Yes.
in this episode, we are going to discuss the very first chapter of this book, which is named Aranyakand Moor. So, there are going to be a lot of aspects in which we will delve our discussion into. And let's just say that we need Apur to enlighten us on this chapter and the structure of it, the content of it, and everything. So, Apur, let's begin with you telling us something about this particular chapter, just a little crux of this particular chapter to begin with.
So, yes, hello guys. We are back, and I am back with enlarged hair, which I have combed properly. So, anyways, so yeah, the book has 9 chapters, and right now we are talking about the first chapter. The first chapter is titled Chapter 1 Aranyakand Moor. So, what it means is that every chapter, the title of every chapter is also divided into two parts. The first part of the title always talks more about like what story of Sri Ram are we highlighting upon? So by that, what I mean is, if you guys had watched the previous podcast where we gave the intro, you might be knowing that there is a considerable amount of stories from the Ramayana that we take references from. So Aranyakanda specifically means the time when Sri Ram, Devi Sita, and Ram's brother Lakshman, they were uh, they were subjected to for the Vanvasa, and they uh, had completed many years in the Vanvasa, and they had started going south, and they ultimately landed or took kind of a pit stop at the holy city of Nasik, and there they built a big like a small hut, but in pristine environments with trees and animals of different kinds around. So that era of, or that part of the Ramayana is specifically called as Aranyakand, and hence Aranyakand. uh, then we go to Aranyakand colon Mool. Now what Mool in Marathi means the root. So in a broader perspective, what Mool means is that what is exactly the importance of the roots, and in the physical aspect of the terms, in materialistic aspect of the terms, and otherwise. And we just try, like I try to develop my own philosophy based upon whatever I have understood from the stories from Ramayana, from other stories that I've incorporated, and maybe the things that I have gone through, and I just try to highlight why the concept of mood or roots is really important. So yeah, that is about the title. And after the title, in the beginning of this podcast, I happened to mention 4 slokas. So I would just like to revisit that again. These are from the Manache sloks. So there was a very popular and a very intellectual saint and a philosopher in the like it was not he was not in the mythology. He actually existed in the 17th century, around the time of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and some people happen to mention him, that is the saint, as the rightful teacher of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, who was one of the biggest rulers on the Indian subcontinent. So the name of this saint and philosopher was Sant Ramdas. The biggest aspect or the biggest highlight point of his philosophy is simply that though he believed in the concept of Hinduism as a religion, but he believed in the concept of the word Hindu as a philosophy. And instead of just uh, getting inclined more towards idol worship, he was actually of the opinion that if, for suppose, okay, let's start from his name. So his name, uh, technically his name was something different, uh, but he was called as Ramdas. So if you split the word Ramdas, the first word is Ram and the second is Das, which literally means a person who himself has decided to devote his own life to the bhakti of Sri Ram. And this again has nothing to do with Ram, the typical caricature of Ram that is there in the Hindu mythology, but it is more related to the concept of Sri Ram. The concept of Sri Ram is equivalent to the concept of being pious, being pure, being unbiased, being truthful, being intellectual, being a great performer, and striving to achieve excellence, but also being humble at the same time, and showing utmost respect to not just human beings, elders, parents, your spouse, your brother, or any living beings, but also to innate objects. For example, Sri Ram greatly revered his bow and arrow, and before any fight, he would often, just bow down in respect. And this concept of Sri Ram, to bow down in respect in uh, relation to everything, being humble, that is was that exactly is what Santa Ramdas tried to incorporate in his life. Additionally, Santa Ramdas also was firmly of the belief that for attaining any form of basic spiritual enlightenment, what is really necessary is that a person should take care of his or her own body, and we should actually practice the principle of our body is like a temple, and we should worship our body like a temple. We shouldn't abuse our body in any way. uh, so in this context, Santa Ramdas was also a great or ardent follower of Lord Hanuman, who in our Hindu mythology is considered to be the lord of exercise and the lord of our body, or he holds great command over his body, but he is also very humble. So in this context, Santa Ramdas has, he was also a great poet. So he has written down many verses which are called as the Manase Shlok. And these are basically directed towards the man or the mind of an individual person in order to uplift or and better our thinking. So I thought it apt to put these Manase Shlok. I know I've said this a little bit about this earlier in the earlier podcast, but these shlokas always hold a great importance from this angle as well. So for all the readers, whenever I read any shloka henceforth, please try to remember that it is in direct connection to the chapter. Uh, yeah, so this was about the title and about what the shlokas are. Yeah, so that was about the basic periphery of how the chapter is lined out.
So, while reading this particular chapter, or rather, while reading the entire book, there is an obvious flow or a structure that is there in this book, right? So, when you start reading, it is about some information about Nasik, which is smoothly transitioned into storytelling of Ramayana. Then there is a part wherein there is a fictional story about this boy named Arvind who is living in Nasik and his adventures and all of that. And the last part or the third part is a general philosophy that is something that you believe in and something that you researched on and which uh, very well links with the entire concept of this book. Okay. And apart from that, something what I've noticed is the way that you have started telling Ramayana or started narrating the story was not very typical. It was very different than what most of us might have had read or might have listened to. Because it's not like कि हाँ ये अभी सीता का स्वयंवर था तो रावण को हरा दिया श्री राम ने. वैसा starting नहीं है. It is very different. You started from something, a small incident of Shurpanaka's encounter with Lakshmana, and then slowly you have in between put in certain details. So all these intricacies, how did you come up with all this structure, and why did you come up with all this structure? Rather would be a question, because it is so subtle that you can actually link all the three parts, not in the beginning, but at least while you read towards the end of the chapter, you get that link somehow, and वो सब कुछ साथ में आके बैठ जाता है. So why that particular structure, and how did you come up with that structure?
So primarily ऐसा था ना कि दिमाग में ये चीज लेके मैं नहीं आगे दौड़ा था कि मुझे रामायण के बारे में बोलना है. Like if it would have been that case, then मेरा अप्रोच बहुत अलग रहता obviously. Then I would obviously go, मतलब मैं शुरू से शुरू करता, and then I would start from why Ram, then why Dashrath, or maybe Dashrath से भी पहले and everything. But मेरा मतलब what I'm trying to say is the thing that I wanted to put out was something totally different, and for that I decided to take the base of the Ramayana. You know, so to put it in a very different analogy, I would say that when we eat pizza, we actually, it's not that we don't taste the bread. If the bread is fresh, definitely we'll enjoy the pizza more. But the primary function of the pizza makers is not to feed you bread. The bread is the base, but they are trying to provide you with a different experience. So going by the same analogy, Ramayan for me is just the base. It's the base of the base. मतलब उस पे पूरा set है, पर मैं बोलने कुछ और जा रहा हूँ. And उस चीज की वजह, and थोड़ा सा मैंने artistic liberty यहाँ पे लेने की कोशिश ये की है कि मान लो कि सामने वाले को रामायण के बारे में पता होगा या नहीं होगा, उसके बारे में I didn't really care much. My only goal was let me assume that because my audience is a global audience. So that is the reason मैंने जो श्लोका starting में recite किया, it is technically in Marathi or even old Marathi, which is called as the Prakrut Marathi. वो Prakrut Marathi कुछ कुछ तो मुझे भी अच्छे से नहीं आती है. But the whole point of the book is that whether I use Sanskrit, Marathi, Hindi or any stories, I should be able to give the context in a very right manner, so that the पढ़ने वाला जो है, he or she never feels lost. That was the primary aim. Coming back to your question, what I was making sure at every time while writing the book was that whichever story I tried to frame, I was always making sure that उसके पीछे की थोड़ी सी context हमेशा set हो जाए. So to elaborate on this further, हम अभी chapter 1 के बारे में बोल रहे हैं. So chapter 1 is divided into 3 parts, like every other chapter. Part A का मैं एक short stanza पढ़ के पहले दिखाता हूँ, and then I'll try to मतलब the viewers will be in a better capacity to understand कि मुझे exactly बोलना क्या है. Chants of Jai Jai Raghuveer Samartha and Jai Shri Ram would echo for long after the morning ritual called as the Pratah Aarti had ended. The pristine environs of the temple of the Maryada Purushottama, who was the epitome of the balanced living, that is Sri Ram, has seen a world of activities since its inception in the late 18th century. It's been close to 2.5 centuries, and yet the enigma of this wondrous Vastu, that is a place of rich cultural context, carved in a single black stone, that is the pure black Pashan, remains undwindled. Millions throng the mandir every year to offer their prayers. Millions throng the mandir every year to offer their prayers to the famed exiled prince who has become a symbol of poise and virtuous behavior for more than 3,000 years in the Indian subcontinent. The symbolism becomes even more resonant due to the supposed stay of the holy trio of Prabhu Ramachandra, that is Lord Ram, the valorous Lakshmana, that is the brother of Ram, and the pious Sita, who was the wife of Ram, at the Panchavati, which happened to be on the banks of the Dakshin Ganga, that is the river Godavari. Yeah, so this was the first chapter. So अभी इस chapter में अगर हम examples ले, तो when I call out the terminology of Maryada Purushottam, I make sure that I do explain that terminology by saying that Maryada Purushottam is a Sanskrit terminology which literally means the epitome of balanced living. Who was Sri Ram? Or the second one would be Vastu. Now, Vastu is a concept in Indian, in Indian philosophy or mythology. उसके बारे में बाद में chapters में हम बोलेंगे. But what is basically Vastu? Vastu is simply a place of a rich cultural context, you know. Or I've used phrases like the famed exiled prince, मतलब again Sri Ram. Or I call the terminology of valorous Lakshmana, matlab brother of Ram, the pious Sita. So, you know, using all these adjectives or using simplified words to explain these terminologies, what I'm really doing is that I'm not leaving the reader hanging at any point. So I'm trying to always make sure that the reader follows whatever terminology I am saying. Because the one biggest challenge in writing books which are based upon these mythological stories is that, for example, with all humility intact, मुझे पता है कि रामायण के बारे में मुझे काफी हद तक पता है. I'm not saying मुझे बहुत ज्यादा पता है. I'm sure there are thousands and lakhs of people जिनको मुझसे ज्यादा पता है. But I know मैंने थोड़ा बहुत इसके बारे में रिसर्च किया है, पढ़ाई की है. But what about a layman? What about a person who is just opening the book and trying to get something from the book? उनके लिए entertaining भी होना चाहिए, उनके लिए कुछ information भी मिलनी चाहिए. And हमेशा, because whenever I read novels or books मेरे बचपन से, there were certain authors who were so beautiful in terms of their craftsmanship in the English language. But वो अपने लेवल में मस्त होते थे, वो मस्तवाल होते थे अपने लिखने में. And due to that, for 20, 30, 50 pages, the reader wouldn't really know if the reader has lost the context. So मेरा हमेशा से ये था, from the first word until the last word of the book, कि मुझे reader को मेरे साथ लेके जाना है on the experience. Because then when that happens, I think वो थोड़ा सा spoon feeding लग सकता है किसी किसी को. But अगर एक हद तक आप उनको आपके साथ लेके जाओगे, तो फिर उसके आगे what the book really wants to portray or symbolize or tell you, then वो आप तक पहुंच जाएगा. And then उसके बाद when the reader starts thinking, it is much easier for the reader to develop their own mindset or their own सीख कि मुझे ये book से, okay, सीख is a strong word, but like मुझे ये book पढ़ के what do I get? Qualitatively, what have I earned? So, you know, while to simply put it, whenever I wrote down any word from this book, there were two states of mind. One was that of a writer who wanted to say something, and one was that of a reader, जिसको कैसा लगेगा अगर वो पढ़ रहा है, and who is a complete novice, जिसको कुछ भी पता नहीं. तो वो दो states of mind में रह के मैंने almost ये पूरा book लिखने की कोशिश की. Coming back to the chapter A, part A of this chapter 1, as is kind of clear from the paragraph that I just read out. This is like a prelude, or this just sets the context कि रामायण क्या था, प्रभु रामचंद्र क्या थे. The part A of this chapter, it deals with, it's just laying the foundation. So I'm trying to make sure कि what exactly was like, what were the three characters of Sri Ram, Lakshman and Sita? Where were they exiled? How important were they in that era, which is called as the Treta Yuga? Then directly, like you rightly pointed out, Swasti, directly I jump into the story of Shurpanakha. Now, Shurpanakha की story काफी famous है, but अगर आप उसका context set नहीं करोगे, तो people will be left literally hanging. The reason that I started with Shurpanakha was because the entire book, or like more than 80 to 90% of the book, primarily revolves around Nasik, either about historical or mythological events around Nasik. And for me to explain whatever philosophy that I want to, I've used Nasik as the base, and hence one of the key incidences that has been that has occurred in Nasik, or that has supposed to have been occurred in Nasik, is that of Shurpanakha and राम मतलब राम लक्ष्मण सीता वहां पे रह रहे थे एंड शूर्पणखा आई और फिर लक्ष्मण गुस्सा हो गया, उसने उसका नाक काट दिया एंड एवरीथिंग लाइक दैट. तो वो एक तो वो एक इतनी पावरफुल स्टोरी है अकॉर्डिंग टू मी दैट उसमें राम जी का कंपोजर, उनका सीता के प्रति लॉयल्टी, the truthful and a very innocent and transparent nature of Sita, and a very short-tempered yet very brotherly love kind of attitude of Lakshmana, you know, all these characteristics, they really emerge in that one incidence, and people get a complete gist. And you know, बाहर से भी आते हैं लोग, तो लोग एकदम directly, people are thrown into the thick of things. And even for example, suppose a Caucasian reader or a reader from any country remotely not related to the concept of Hinduism, they'll really relate to this concept, this story, and I can take them from there on. So that was the entire point of putting the story of Shurpanakha. It also sets out a strong context for why Nasik was even important even in the mythological era. So कोई भी एंगल से आप देखते हो, so पूरा का पूरा एक इंट्रोडक्टरी फ्रेमवर्क बुक का बन जाता है वो एक इंसिडेंस में. And that incidence has been explained enough in part A.
Correct.
And not just that, वहाँ का like माहौल कैसा था, वहाँ के trees, forest areas कैसे थे, कौन से type के wild animals वहाँ पे थे, the huge banyan trees that supposedly have been existing for the last 10,000 years, which happen to be called as the Panchavati. Why Panchavati? Because वहाँ पे 5 banyan trees है, so on and so forth. So that is kind of everything about the part A of this book.
Start, please.
Chapter 1, Aranyakand, मूल. प्रभाते देकर आ रहे रुको.
Okay. This is ultimate blooper. देकर आ रहे रुको.
खाना थोड़ा ज्यादा हो गया.
Oh shit.